Welcome to the TalentGrow Show, where you can get actionable, results-oriented insight and advice on how to take your leadership, communication, and people skills to the next level and become the kind of leader people want to follow. And now, your host and leadership development strategist, Halelly Azulay.
Hey there, talent growers. Welcome back to another episode of the TalentGrow Show, this time a solo episode. And in this week's episode, I'm going to focus on the skill of delegating. As you know, this podcast is for leaders who want to grow their leadership skills and become the kind of leader people actually want to follow. And a very important leadership skill, probably a management skill rather than a leadership skill, but what frees you to have the time to be a good leader is to learn to delegate. And so in this episode, I'm going to talk about the barriers and the benefits of delegating, as well as a step-by-step process that will help you delegate successfully. And I also wanted to share with you a relatively new Apple Podcasts review that we received, and I'll read that to you at the end. Let's do it. Effective delegation is an essential supervisory skill. Any supervisor, any manager, any leader must learn to delegate effectively in order to accomplish his or her goals. By definition, if you need to supervise the work of others, then you have to take time away from the technical aspects of your job, from the work, so that you can tend to the people side of things. And this is one of those conundrums that actually catches a lot of new leaders by surprise, because most people are not just leading. I don't really know any job in the Western world where your only job is to lead others. Maybe if you're the CEO, maybe. But for most people, especially if you're somewhere in the middle or in an entry-level management role, you are both doing work and supervising the work of others. So you have to balance how you spend your time, and you now have to get stuff done, plus help others. So it is absolutely crucial that you learn to delegate some of what you used to do in your day-to-day work to others so that you can get your leadership work done. And it's a resource and time management thing, but it's more than that, because there are actually other benefits, and that's what I want to get into today. So let's start by talking about what is delegation in the first place. Delegation means that you're assigning responsibility for another person for a task for which you are ultimately accountable. At the core of delegation are the opposite concepts of autonomy and control. How much autonomy does the delegate have to decide how to work, how to do the task, is negatively correlated with how much direct influence you choose to exert over how they do the work. So let's think about this. There's a really broad spectrum of possible combinations, and there really isn't a formula for the one right way, because it depends on a lot of contextual things. It's very situational. If you ever heard the words situational leadership, I really like that theory by Ken Blanchard, because I think that it describes how what's right for one person is not right for another based on where they are in their development, based on where they are in their understanding of their job or the assignment. And so there's so many different factors that you have to consider to make the right decision about how much to delegate, how much control to continue to maintain, or how much to let go and let the person just do what they need to do. And it depends on the task. It depends on the time available. It depends on their experience level or fitness for the task. So it's going to be really different. There is a blog post that I'm going to link to that describes the difference between delegating, micromanaging, and plain dumping work on someone so that you can make the right decision. And there is a good decision matrix in there. Now, what gets in the way of delegating? It's actually something that is a common problem for a lot of the leaders that I meet and work with regularly. Most of the time, leaders and managers tell me about all of the different barriers that they see when they think about delegating. Here are some of the challenges that they talk about. Tell me if these ring a bell for you. 1, I don't have time to train someone to do it. It's just faster if I do it myself. Wow, this one is so common. And I've personally experienced this challenge. Another one, I'm not sure I can trust someone new with this task. It's too important. Here's another barrier or challenge. I don't feel right asking others to do, quote, my work. I'm doing air quotes when I say my work. Another one. I worry that people on my team don't have the right skills to do this task. Another challenge or obstacle or barrier. What if the person I delegate to feels that this is too fill in the blank, too boring, too easy, too hard for them? And then let me say one more common barrier to delegating. What if they do it wrong and I have to redo it anyway? Oh boy. So there are a lot of other barriers. We can all think of barriers, but here's the reality. First of all, unless you give people a chance to learn a task and earn your trust, then you're going to be overloaded and overwhelmed forever. You're never going to free yourself from the current situation. Nothing will change. And how's that working for you? So while it does require an upfront investment of time to show someone new to a task how to do it right, it pays back dividends to do so, because in a short amount of time, they'll learn how to do it. They'll be able to do it independently, and you'll be free from having to do it. And you'll also be free from having to give them a lot of feedback or to monitor very closely all the things that you might need to do up front. After delegating it for the first time or second time, you will no longer need to worry about once you've given it to them and they've learned it and they can run forward with it. So you have to have a long view mentality on delegation. You have to play the long game. You do want to ensure that you don't just dump stuff on people, especially if it's something boring or mundane. You don't want to just overload people who can handle more challenging and satisfying work with stuff that will seem to them like you're just giving them your grunt work, okay? That's not going to make them stay with you forever and love working. No, nobody stays forever, but they're not going to love working for you. So you do want to try, my big caveat to you is, try to delegate a process or a project start to finish whenever possible so that you can give the person you're delegating to the satisfaction of seeing something full circle rather than being like a cog in the wheel, or like that famous episode of I Love Lucy, where all Lucy does is just try to wrap the bonbons in the wrapper as they come across the conveyor belt. I'll link to it in the show notes. It's hysterical if you've never seen it. So we don't want to do that. What are the benefits of delegating the right way? There are a lot of benefits. Let me enumerate some of them. First of all, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, you develop people. You're developing new competencies and new skills in your staff, which helps them feel more satisfied in their job. They feel like they're growing. Lots of statistics say that people leave jobs when they don't feel like they're growing and learning anymore. So, hello, when you delegate something new to them, you're letting them learn something new. And it helps them feel more engaged. And the statistics say that many people, the majority of people, are not engaged at work. So, they're going to be less likely to bail if you delegate more good work to people so that they can stay engaged, learn, grow, and continue to work with you. Another reason that you will benefit from delegating is that it develops more self-sufficiency and autonomy in your team over time, which helps them feel good about their work. And it relieves you of having to spend as much time providing support, providing input. It actually frees you from having to be ever present in their day-to-day engagement because you're helping them become self-sufficient and autonomous over time. Long game, right? Another benefit, it builds trust between you and your team. It goes both ways. You're trusting them with something that's important. They feel your trust. They want to earn your trust, not let you down. So they try their hardest to do good work. And then they earn your trust and you trust them more and they trust you more. And it's wonderful. Another benefit, it allows your staff to have a wider variety of experiences. It makes them more well-rounded and therefore more satisfied. Again, you don't want them just doing the same thing over and over and over. That's going to wear them down and bore them and cause them to become disengaged. It also improves your service to clients because the more you have qualified people on your team and the more that they are skilled so that they can do things faster in a more efficient way, in a more effective way, then you can serve clients faster, better, because there's shared work and you're removing the backlog. More people can do it. And one final benefit that I'd like to mention today is that you become less overwhelmed and you can feel less overworked, which frees you to also be more engaged and to enjoy your work, which creates this beautiful, beneficial cycle for everyone in your area. Sound good? Are you ready to get started? Okay. But before I teach you the steps to delegating right, I do want to give you a couple of cautionary words. Some things should not be delegated. You cannot just delegate everything. There are some things that you want to make sure that you maintain direct control over. Let me give you a couple. So don't get all delegation happy on me. There are some things that really, really only you should do. For example, you cannot and should not delegate performance conversations. You cannot or should not delegate giving feedback to people about things that you personally need them to learn about and observed. Okay, feedback that comes from you needs to be delivered by you. It's your job to manage performance. It's your job to give feedback. You're the only one who should do it. Don't delegate that. Also, you should never delegate firing an employee. Although definitely a lot of my colleagues in HR will tell you that a lot of managers, supervisors, and leaders try to delegate this to human resources. You cannot and you should not. And finally, that I want to mention today is that if there's a big change process, that managing that change process is probably not something you want to delegate. You definitely can delegate aspects of the change management process, but the overall leadership over the change that you're instilling and orchestrating needs to stay with you. Can you think of other tasks, activities, or processes that you should not delegate? I'd love for you to chime in and put those in the comments on the show notes page. Now that we've talked about what delegation is, what gets in the way of leaders delegating enough, what are the benefits you can gain if you started delegating more, and we talked about some of the cautionary tasks and activities and processes that you should not delegate. We're ready to dive into the process that I promised. And there are 5 steps that can help you delegate effectively. And I'm going to review them one by one. So, step 1, analyze your time and tasks. I want you to take a close look at how you spend your time and what are the tasks that you do regularly, or what are the tasks that are popping up on your to-do list. And break them down into the smallest chunks, but also keep them connected to the bigger project of which they are a part, so that you can choose the tasks that you can and that you should delegate and the ones that you should keep. So when you look at your work more holistically like this, you should be able to start noticing what are some of the things that you can delegate. And I would suggest that you consider grouping them to give them a deeper meaning and more satisfaction of seeing that whole process, like I talked about earlier, than just delegating tiny, boring, meaningless, or isolated tasks. That is okay here and there, but overall, it's not a good practice to do that a lot because people don't appreciate so much because they don't learn very deeply. They don't get the satisfaction of seeing something to fruition, and it's really not that meaningful. They do feel like you're dumping your grunt work on them when you do that. Sometimes you have to. And sometimes at the beginning, you need to give small bites because otherwise it's not manageable. But overall, have the bias of not doing that. Over time, don't do that. Okay, so number 1 was analyze your time and tasks so that you can look for things that you can delegate. Number 2 is you want to choose who do you delegate to. What are the factors that affect how to select the right person to delegate to, the right delegate? I want you to think about their current skill level and also their desired skill development. If you've been listening to me in other episodes and reading my blog, you know that I suggest that you ought to be having regular conversations with every one of your team members throughout the year. And I'll link to a blog post and a podcast episode. And I think I even have a video vlog about the 10 conversations every leader should have. So there's lots of opportunities for you to talk to people in a way that lets you discover what is it that they want to learn? Where do they want to grow? How do they want to develop? Because that'll give you good clues about ways in which you can help support that goal of theirs by what you delegate to them. So you're thinking about their current skills as their desired skills. You also need to think about their current workload and also the distribution of the delegated tasks among your staff. You don't want to just always delegate to one or two people and not to the others. This creates a poor distribution of work, and it's going to burn out a couple of people and make them resentful and also the others. So look at the distribution. And then take a very big picture view before you zero in on who it is that's the best person for the job. Be extra aware of any tendency that you might have to always go to your rock stars. You're not developing people to help you if you're always, even inadvertently, giving the work to the people that you can always count on, those go-getters, and you're inadvertently missing an opportunity to develop some new go-getters. They're going to become disappointed and they're going to become disengaged, which creates a very vicious cycle for you. Okay, step 3. Once you've chosen a delegate, you want to brief them. So you need to have a meeting with them where you tell them both the what and the why of the delegated task. It's really important to help them understand why you chose them, what it is that you expect. So define the objectives clearly and concisely, maybe even create a checklist. Specify the resources that are available. Like, are there human resources, financial resources, equipment, facilities? What resources are available to them? What might they need? And set a schedule clearly with deadlines, with milestones and check-in points, review points. You don't want to just leave them completely on their own, with a few exceptions where the person is very adept and already knows how to do this and doesn't need you checking it. Go back to that blog post I mentioned that I'm going to link to in the show notes between how to choose between micromanaging and leaving people on their own. Now describe the how. You want to tell them about any methodology or procedures, but you want them to have as much input as possible. The more that they are experienced with the work, the less you need to specify the how and the more autonomy you should allow them. Generally, if people understand the what they need to accomplish and by when they need to accomplish it and the standard by which success will be measured, you can leave them alone about the how if they already know what they're doing. But if they don't, if they're brand new at it, don't leave them alone. They don't know what they're doing. Guide them, support them, help them be successful. You want to really be specific with them about the level of authority or the decision-making range and what level of monitoring and autonomy that you would like to have with this task. I'm going to link to another blog post that I've written about the responsibility ladder. That is such a useful tool for assessing the level at which you can be involved or be removed from the decision-making as you develop your staff. Ask the person to summarize the task in their own words. So often, we just sort of give someone something, we think it's clear, and they might even think it's clear at that moment, or they might just nod, or maybe they are not clear, but they feel embarrassed or unsure that you'll welcome them asking questions or being unsure. So don't just ask them any questions. Are you clear? And leave it be. Ask them to take the step to summarize the task in their own words, because then you will know for sure. And they will know for sure if your understanding is shared, if you see things exactly in the same way. And it will give you an opportunity to correct, to refine your instructions if you can hear in how they described it that they're not clear or it's off. This will save you so much time later to discover that they didn't have the right idea, or that they were confused, or that they lacked the clarity or understanding about some of the details, and they're going to create something that's wrong. They're going to miss deadlines. It's going to create a problem between you. It's just not good. So you're going to save all that by doing this one simple thing. It's an extra step. It doesn't take that long. It's so crucial. And now you want to get their commitment, get their agreement, get them to say that they know what you've asked them to do and they agree to the stipulations and the standards and the deadline. And now you can offer support without removing responsibility. You don't need to come and swoop in and take it from them the minute they struggle. But you don't need to completely leave them to their own devices if you think that there's something they'll need, or if they need some help or have a question, they should feel very comfortable asking for your help. So my tip is, no one likes to be micromanaged. Everybody talks about micromanagement as if it's like the worst thing, a dirty word. But ultimately, The same behavior that looks like micromanaging to someone who knows what they're doing looks like helpful supervision to someone who's brand new to the job, brand new to the task. So you definitely want to go back to that blog post I mentioned so that you can give the right level of balance between autonomy and control. Okay, so we've covered 3 steps. Look at your work and your tasks and your time. Think about who's best to delegate to, brief them. And now step 4 is, now that they're out doing their work, you want to monitor and encourage. You want to do this in accordance with the appropriate level of autonomy and control that were discussed between you, so that you're not micromanaging and so that you're not just throwing them off a cliff and letting them flail. So that should prevent any kind of surprises, and you will be able to help ensure that you're helpful, but not crossing over into being overbearing or into being the deadbeat boss who's nowhere to be found. So definitely monitor and encourage in the right amount based on the agreement. And then step 5, evaluate, extract lessons learned, and celebrate successes. This is a step that a lot of people skip, but it's a really important step. It's for you and them. You give them feedback, you get feedback, and you keep developing the person up that responsibility ladder to take on more autonomy, to free you up more, and to give you an opportunity to exert less control and do more of other stuff that you need to grow into or that you want to try to do, like being innovative or taking time to plan more or being more strategic. A lot of things that leaders and managers just don't have the time to do because they're bogged down in the nitty-gritty work, which they could be delegating. So I've covered what delegating is, why you should definitely do it more, and how to do it. And I hope that you feel more empowered now to delegate more often and delegate more effectively. Just think of all the opportunities that you're going to be able to pursue when you reduce your stress and have more slack in your day. I hope that this was helpful to you, talent growers. I'd love to hear your feedback, as always. And also let me know what else you want me to cover in these solo episodes. Recently, we received another Apple Podcasts review. This one is short and sweet. It's from a person whose name is Crystalia Cottages. And I'm guessing it's a female, I don't know. She says, I look forward to Halelly Azulay's podcasts because they're always interesting and useful. Short and sweet and kind. Thank you, Crystalia. I appreciate you. And I hope that you listening now have already left a review. But if you haven't, what are you waiting for? Come on. I'd love it. I would love to read your review on the air. And I would love for your review to help more people check out the podcast and get the value that you're already getting. Well, that's it for another solo episode of the TalentGrow Show. I am Halelly Azulay, your leadership development strategist here at TalentGrow. And until the next time, make today great.
Thanks for listening to the TalentGrow Show, where we help you develop your talent to become the kind of leader that people want to follow. For more information, visit talentgrow.com.